Stardew Valley was one of my first farming sim games, and I'm honestly glad it was. I thoroughly enjoyed Stardew Valley and still have fun with it to this day through modding and optimization. It's a relaxing game to play when I have downtime, and I think Stardew just gives you an experience that no other game has really been able to recreate. That was until I recently stumbled across a game that is very similar to Stardew, and to my surprise, I enjoyed playing it more than I enjoyed playing Stardew. It does an amazing job at capturing what makes Stardew such an enjoyable game, while also giving off its own unique vibe. The game in question today is called Coral Island. So, without further ado, let's dive into Coral Island. I'm using this first section to talk about Stardew Valley and Coral Island to anyone who isn't initiated with either of the two games. So, if you're well acquainted with Coral Island or Stardew Valley, feel free to skip this segment. Farming is at the core of the gameplay of these two games. Players plant and harvest crops, raise animals, and manage farm resources to earn money. There are caves and mines to explore where players can gather valuable resources, battle monsters, and uncover secrets. Players can build relationships with the residents of Stardew Valley and Coral Island, engaging in social activities, giving gifts, and potentially even pursuing romantic interests. As players progress, they can craft tools, machines, and buildings to help improve their farm. This game provides various quests and objectives that give players a sense of purpose and progression. These can include bundles, seasonal events, and more. The game follows a 4-season cycle with 28 days in each season. Each season has unique weather, crops, and events. Players can customize their character, farm layout, and house to create a unique and personalized experience. Now that we've covered what kind of farming sim games these are, let's talk about Coral Island. Coral Island was developed by Stairway, an Indonesian game company established in 2019, with Coral Island as their debut game. I originally wasn't going to include this brief bio, but I think the devs deserve some love and recognition for this amazing game. They're on Discord and Kickstarter if you're interested. Coral Island takes place on the tropical island of Startlet Town, where you, the main character, used to live and are now returning to so that you can escape from the mundane city life. You're shown to your new house after a very long boat ride and are given tools and seeds to start out. Yeah, I know it sounds similar to a certain game, but bear with me here. The game mechanics are very similar to Stardew, so much so that the controls are almost exactly identical. This game does a very good job at encapsulating what makes Stardew Valley good in my eyes. It has that same relaxing atmosphere that Stardew has, with your only worry being crows eating up your seeds and dying in the mines, but don't do that. The idea of getting away from society and just farming to go about your days is the essence of what makes both Stardew and Coral Island good. I think the tropical environment also greatly adds to the feel of a getaway of sorts, but that's just me. With all that said, I wanted to talk about some of the activities and game mechanics that were added that are separate from Stardew and help Coral Island stand out as its own game. First up, we have diving. Diving is very similar to mining. You break trash in order to find solar orbs, which are like the ropes? The ladders? Once you get enough solar orbs in an area and cleared out any trash blocking their path, they will release a burst of energy and they will clear any black roots that were previously blocking your path. And then you go into the next area, rinse and repeat the process. There is also kelp that acts very similarly to ore, which will allow you to upgrade various aspects of your farm, such as your seeds and saplings. The main differences between diving and mining are that there are no hostile mobs, you retain all progress from day to day, there's depth but no actual floors, you can catch a variety of different creatures while diving, and you can forage for objects, such as seashells. Diving also contributes to your town score. I wanted to add that somewhere, and I don't know, it just fit here. I really like the diving activity. Cleaning the areas of trash is really satisfying. Diving also adds to the story of the game, but I don't want to spoil that, so you'll have to figure that one out on your own. The addition of separate biomes gives the game depth, and the design of diving-related things is just so nice. Plus, it just gives you another thing to do throughout the day, and another source of income. My main gripe about diving is that sometimes it's brain-numbing, just clearing out trash, and once you get low energy, this adorable, but extremely annoying robot will not stop constantly reminding you that you have low energy.
You have low energy. You have low energy. You have low energy.
Bug catching is another one of the activities they've added in Coral Island. Bug catching is not as rewarding as other activities cash-wise, but if you're a Pokemon fan or you just enjoy collecting things, bug catching is definitely for you. The activity itself is pretty simple. You attempt to sneak up on a bug and catch it. If a bug is within catching range, it'll have an exclamation mark above it, and its detection meter is displayed as a white circle around the catching range indicator. If you scare off a bug, it'll begin to flee, but some bugs can be caught during this fleeing period. Bug catching can also be automated with the use of traps, though you'll need a different trap for flying and ground bugs. There isn't much skill expression in bug catching. For the most part, you'll be gated by your level and tools, but you can dash and try and quickly catch bugs right as they begin to flee, which is a pretty interesting mechanic. Overall, bug catching just serves as another activity, and it's also nice for filling up the museum and the temple offerings. But I really enjoyed it, so you take that as you will. The museum is very akin to the temple, with the main difference being that you can bring just about anything you catch from bug catching and fishing to the museum, as well as any artifacts and gems you find while mining and diving. Once you give 50 donations to the museum, it will start an upgrade process in which you can still donate, and after a few days in-game, the museum will change its layout and expand. I really like the museum as it adds a use to a lot of things in the game rather than them just being crafting materials or cash, and filling up the museum is really satisfying. It's like decorating a house, and you can see your hard work come to fruition right before your eyes. There's a really cool thing that they did with the museum, and where they added statues and the names of anybody who donated to their Kickstarter. I just thought this was really cool, and shows how dedicated the devs are to their player base. Coral Island has enchantments, which can be applied to your tools to give special effects through the use of artifacts and gems. These special effects include, but are not limited to, increased use speed, no energy drain, increased loot, etc. The addition of enchantment gives you something to do with all those spare artifacts and gems you may happen to have after donating to the museum, rather than just selling them off. In Stardew, whenever you got an artifact that you already had, it was a little disappointing, to be honest. It was like, oh, yay, I already have this. Now, whenever you get a duplicate, it's like, hey, enchantment materials, lit. I wanted to briefly talk about fishing and mining in Coral Island because it works slightly differently from fishing and mining in Stardew. For fishing in Coral Island, you have to reel the fish to the finish line while the fish flails in an attempt to get away every couple of seconds. There are two ways to fail to catch a fish. One, the tension bar at the top fills up and your line snaps. Or two, the fish gets too far away and the line snaps. I like the way fishing works in Coral Island. It makes it to where even if you have low fishing skills and a trash fishing rod, you can still catch harder fish with the caveat that it will take significantly longer to catch them, and you'll have to put in more effort. This makes fishing feel more like a skill check than a level capped activity. Instead of one mine where you progress deeper and deeper into the mine, there are 4 different mines that go down to level 40, and once you reach level 40, you go into a different mine. Outside of that, mining works essentially the same as in Stardew. Now that I've talked about some of the ways that Coral Island stands out through its gameplay mechanics, I wanted to talk about the lore of the game. I don't want to spoil too much about the story, but you learn fairly early on that there was an oil spill from another nearby island that made its way to Coral Island. Coral Island keeps this theme of pollution throughout the game, with the trash in the ocean and a company looking to profit off the vulnerable state of the island through oil drilling. The events are also reflected by this theme, as well as some other stuff in the lore, but once again, no spoilers. You'll have to play the game for yourself to figure that one out. Once again, I know it sounds similar to another game we know and love, but it's okay. Coral Island looks to distinguish itself through the way it tells its story and its unique characters. I absolutely love the character designs in this game. All of the characters are charming and bursting with personality. The art direction makes all of these characters look super unique and vibrant. There's something about each character in this game that makes them feel very human. Maybe it's their dialogue, maybe it's their design, maybe Stairway nailed the facial expressions. I wish I had time to talk about each character individually because I really do enjoy the characters in this game, if I haven't made that abundantly clear by now. Each character is worth talking to for their own reasons, but since I don't have time to do that here are a few character interactions that I personally enjoyed. Now that we've gone through and talked about the characters and the story of the game, I wanted to include some of my personal opinions that make the game enjoyable for me, and that I couldn't fit into other segments of the video. Again, feel free to skip this part if you're more interested in learning my criticisms of Coral Island. I love the quality of life that Stairway has added into Coral Island. For example, with the addition of bug catching and diving, you spend a lot more time walking places and have to do more within a month, and to circumvent the fact that you'll now be spending a lot more time on these other 2 activities, they have unlocked the teleporters significantly earlier in the game, and there's more teleporters. Speaking of the 2 new activities, I'd like to mention that it never feels like you do not have something to do in this game, or that it ever feels repetitive. If I got bored of mining, I would just go diving. Bored of diving, I'd go catch bugs, so on and so forth. When I was playing, I was constantly planning ahead and doing things. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about Coral Island. It is amazing at keeping your attention, and I feel like Stardew kind of struggles at that at times. Coral Island has a lot of accessibility options. They have a colorblind mode, a dyslexic mode? Huh. I didn't even know there was such thing as a dyslexic mode. That's really cool. Anyways, Coral Island is well optimized, despite the fact that it hasn't actually released yet. And most computers and laptops should be able to run it at least on low graphics settings. I know I mentioned it before, but the art in this game is just so good. I don't think this game could sell its vibe as well as it does without the art direction and the overall designs. There isn't much room to complain about any of the characters' designs or the design of the town. The characters' designs reflect their personality without making them too flashy, keeping them as humans rather than characters. And the architecture tells a story of a modern and tropical mesh, which is exactly what Startlet Town is. Finally, we have our criticisms of the game. Before I begin, I wanted to actually take the time to mention that this game is an early release. I know I mentioned it in earlier parts of the video, but now I really wanted to put that out there. Okay, let's go. The combat in Coral Island feels extremely lackluster. The sound effects are generally uninteresting, which I believe to be the main problem. From swinging your sword, getting a critical hit, to actually finishing off a mob, all of the sound effects for combat are just meh. Outside of that, combat is not very rewarding and can easily be avoided in most cases. Lastly, the combat in Coral Island is fairly repetitive and doesn't have a lot of mechanics to it. Yeah, there's a stumble mechanic, but outside of that, there isn't anything really spicing up combat. Combat usually dumbs down to just left-clicking over and over again. I really do hope they flesh out combat more in the full release by adjusting some of the aforementioned critiques, because it definitely could be a fun part of the game, with just a little bit of adjustment. Another big gripe I have is the inability to skip cutscenes or text. In my opinion, Coral Island is not a one-and-done kind of game. There are different romance routes, different ways to progress, and lots of character customization. I dread sitting through the cutscenes I've already watched and trying to speed my way through text I've already read. A skip option would be really nice for people doing multiple runs. My last critique is a lack of tutorials and information. The game kind of just drops you into each activity without telling you how to do them. For fishing, I didn't realize that you don't click when a fish bites your line. You just wait until you have to reel it in. And so I ended up failing the fishing minigame multiple times in my first playthrough. The one activity that actually did have a tutorial is diving. I'm under the impression that Stairway did intend for this game to be played by Stardew players, hence the lack of tutorials, because you would already know how to do the activities, but who knows? You know what comes with no cons though? Liking this video and hitting that subscribe button. It is completely free and helps me out so I can continue making content that you, the viewer, enjoy. In conclusion, I think Coral Island is a great game for people who enjoyed Stardew Valley and are looking for a fresh experience. As I mentioned before, it plays very similarly to Stardew, and was likely heavily inspired by Stardew. Coral Island has a lot of the same charm that Stardew has, and if that's what the devs were going for, they did an excellent job at capturing it. I have high hopes for Coral Island, and I think it could be an amazing game. This was my first long-form video I produced, and it took a lot of time, so thank you to anyone who watched this far. It really means a lot to me. I'd also like to give a quick shout out to Oki Hinoki, who helped me write the script of this video. Make sure to go check them out. I posted their links in the description below. Once again, thank you all for watching. Make sure you stay hydrated, and you'll have a wonderful day.